I thought watching my grandparents' ranch for 3 days would be easy. The first 2 nights were completely normal, but on the third night, every horse on the property suddenly started panicking at the exact same time. Then I heard something coming from the dark field beyond the fence. A whistle. Slow, distant, almost like someone was signaling another person. A few seconds later, another whistle answered from somewhere farther away. At first, I thought it was just a trespasser. But when I went outside to investigate, I found something near the stables that made my stomach drop. And what I discovered later that night was so disturbing that I never agreed to stay alone on that ranch again. If you're alone right now, this story might make you think twice before looking outside your window tonight. My name is Tyler, and this happened during the summer of 2020. My grandparents owned a large ranch in eastern Wyoming. Every summer, I spent a few weeks helping them around the property. That year was different. My grandparents had to leave town for 3 days to attend a family emergency. Since I was 18 and familiar with the ranch, they trusted me to watch everything while they were gone. At first, I thought it would be fun. 3 days alone, no rules, no responsibilities other than feeding livestock and checking fences. The first 2 days passed without any problems. The third night was when everything changed. I was sitting in the living room watching television around 10 o'clock. Outside, the wind pushed through the tall grass surrounding the ranch. Everything felt normal. Then all the horses started making noise. Every single one of them. I muted the TV. The sounds continued. Restless movement, loud snorting, panic. Animals know when something is wrong, and those horses sounded terrified. I walked to the front window. The stables were visible from the house. At first, nothing looked unusual. Then I noticed one stall door swinging open. That didn't make sense. I specifically remembered locking every stall before sunset. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Maybe one of the horses had somehow escaped. I grabbed a flashlight and headed outside. The moment I stepped onto the porch, I noticed something else. The entire ranch was silent. No crickets, no frogs, nothing. Only the nervous sounds coming from the stables. That's when I heard it. A whistle, far away, coming from the field beyond the fence. A long, slow whistle. Then silence. I stood frozen. A few seconds later, another whistle answered from farther away. Someone was definitely out there. At first, I thought it was just a trespasser, but a few minutes later I found something near the stables that completely changed my mind. I walked toward the stable with my flashlight raised. The horses were visibly agitated. Several were kicking their stalls. Others were pacing nervously. Then I saw it. One horse was missing. Its stall stood wide open. My heart immediately started racing. I stepped inside and searched every corner of the stable. Nothing. The horse was gone. That's when I noticed strange footprints in the dirt. Dozens of them. Not hoof prints. Human footprints. Fresh ones. They led away from the stable and toward the open field behind the ranch. I stared at them for several seconds. Something felt terribly wrong. I should have gone back inside. I should have called the sheriff. Instead, curiosity got the better of me. I followed the footprints. The farther I walked, the darker everything became. Soon, the ranch lights were barely visible behind me. The field stretched endlessly in front of me. Then I heard voices. Soft voices. Multiple people speaking at once. I couldn't understand the words. The language sounded unfamiliar, almost like chanting. I immediately turned off my flashlight. My pulse was pounding. The voices were close now, very close. Slowly, I moved toward the sound, and then I saw them, at least 8 figures, standing in a circle, wearing dark robes, completely motionless. My stomach dropped. I had no idea who these people were, but I knew one thing. I wasn't supposed to be seeing this. Then one of them slowly turned and looked directly at me. And that's when I realized they already knew I was there. The moment one of the figures looked directly at me, my entire body froze. There was no way he should have seen me. I was standing nearly 50 yards away, hidden in darkness, not moving. Yet somehow he was staring straight at me. Then another figure turned. Then another. Within seconds, all 8 people were facing my direction. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The field became completely silent. I couldn't even hear the wind anymore. Every instinct in my body told me to run, but fear kept me rooted to the spot. The tallest figure slowly stepped out of the circle. He wore a black robe that reached the ground. His face was hidden behind a pale mask. No eyes, no expression, just a blank white face. The figure took another step, then another, walking directly toward me. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I finally stumbled backward. The figure continued approaching. Then, without warning, the rest of the group started moving too. Not running, walking, slowly, calmly, as if they knew there was nowhere for me to go. That's when survival instincts finally kicked in. I turned and sprinted, fast as I could. The field blurred around me. Tall grass slapped against my legs. My lungs burned. Behind me, I heard movement. Lots of movement. More than 8 people. Far more. It sounded like dozens of footsteps moving through the darkness. I risked a glance over my shoulder and immediately wished I hadn't. There were people everywhere, some emerging from the grass, some stepping out from behind old fence posts, others standing perfectly still, watching me run. I had only seen 8 figures originally. Now it looked like there were 20, maybe more. Then I heard something that terrified me even more than the masked people, a horse screaming somewhere in the darkness. The sound was so unnatural that it made my blood run cold. I kept running. The ranch lights were finally visible ahead, just a little farther. Then my foot hit something. I crashed face first into the ground. The flashlight flew from my hand. Pain shot through my shoulder. For a second I couldn't breathe. I rolled over and looked at what had tripped me. At first I thought it was a log. Then my flashlight beam landed on it, and I nearly threw up. It was my missing horse, dead. Its body had been carefully positioned in the center of a strange symbol carved into the dirt. Candles surrounded it. Dozens of candles, all burning. The flames danced in the darkness. I scrambled backward in horror. The smell alone was enough to make me sick. The horse hadn't died naturally. Someone had done this. Recently, very recently. Then I noticed something even worse. Fresh footprints surrounded the symbol. Hundreds of them. People had been gathering here. A lot of people. And they weren't far away. I could still hear movement approaching through the field. Branches snapping, footsteps crunching, getting closer. I forced myself to stand. Then I ran harder than I ever had in my life. The ranch house was only a few hundred yards away now. I could make it. I had to. But just before reaching the porch lights, I looked back one final time. What I saw standing at the edge of the darkness still gives me nightmare. Every lock clicked into place. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I immediately called 911. The dispatcher could hear the panic in my voice. While waiting for deputies to arrive, I grabbed my grandfather's rifle and sat beside the living room window. I didn't take my eyes off the field. For nearly 30 minutes, the figures remained there, watching, waiting. Then one by one, they slowly disappeared back into the darkness, as if they had never been there at all. The deputies arrived about 40 minutes later. I've never been happier to see flashing police lights. 3 patrol vehicles pulled into the ranch driveway. I practically ran outside to meet them. The lead deputy listened carefully as I explained everything. The masked people, the chanting, the dead horse, the strange symbol in the field. To his credit, he didn't laugh or dismiss me, but I could tell he was skeptical. Still, several deputies followed me back into the field. The entire walk, I kept expecting to see those white masks staring at us from the darkness. Thankfully, we didn't. But when we reached the spot where I'd found the horse, everyone stopped. The symbol was still there. The candles were still there. And so was the horse. The deputies immediately called for additional officers. The area became an active crime scene. Photographs were taken. Evidence markers were placed. Everyone seemed confused. Nobody could explain what they were looking at. One deputy estimated there were footprints from at least 30 different people around the site. 30. The realization made my stomach twist. That wasn't a small group. That was an organized gathering, maybe even something bigger. Then one of the deputies discovered something hidden beneath the horse, and suddenly the investigation became much more serious. Using gloves, they carefully moved part of the animal's body. Underneath was a small metal object. At first it looked like a necklace, but when they cleaned it off, everyone went silent. It wasn't jewelry, it was an identification tag, the kind used for livestock. Only this tag didn't belong to my grandparents' ranch. It belonged to a farm nearly 40 miles away, a farm that had reported several missing animals over the previous year. The deputy's expression immediately changed. This wasn't some harmless prank. Whoever had done this had been active for a long time, maybe years. The investigation continued until sunrise. By morning, state investigators had become involved. For several weeks, officers searched nearby woods, abandoned buildings, and remote properties. But nobody was ever arrested. No suspects, no names, nothing. The case slowly went cold. My grandparents installed cameras everywhere, motion sensors, floodlights, even reinforced locks. They took no chances after that, and honestly, neither would I. For months, nothing happened. Then one evening, while reviewing security footage, my grandfather called me. The fear in his voice immediately brought back all the memories. "Tyler," he said, "you need to see this." I drove to the ranch that same night. My grandfather showed me footage from a camera near the back fence. The timestamp was 3:11 a.m. At first, the field looked empty. Then a figure walked into view, a tall person wearing dark clothing. They stood perfectly still for several minutes, then slowly turned toward the camera. My heart nearly stopped. The person was wearing one of the same white masks, the exact same kind. Before leaving, the figure did something strange. They placed an object on the ground, then disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, my grandfather found that object, a wooden carving, handmade, weathered, and carved into its surface was the same symbol from the field, the same symbol found around the dead horse, the same symbol investigators had never been able to identify. That was the last confirmed sighting anyone ever recorded. To this day, nobody knows who those masked people were. Nobody knows why they gathered in the field, and nobody knows what they wanted. But one thing still bothers me. When the deputies counted the footprints that night, they estimated around 30 people had been there. Yet on every security camera we reviewed afterward, only one masked figure was ever seen. End of story.